like my videos like I like my fighting game opponents, slightly tilted.
Hi, Mr. The Flip, longtime fan. I don't play Exerd, but I've been watching how you promote the community and bring people together. It's inspiring. My question is, how do you find the time to do it all? I recently started grad school while working full-time, and it feels impossible to take care of other things in my life because I get burnt out so fast, fighting games, exercise, and so on. How do you manage your time and resources to be a TO, practice Exerd, and still have a balanced life?
I appreciate that they're like, how do you find the time to do all these fighting game things and also have a balanced life? Like is there balance in that?
I was about to say, turns out your life is just fighting games.
Yeah. I might be the wrong person to answer this question. So there's a couple different things going on in this question. One is a question of time management and how to stay engaged with fighting games when you have other demands in your life. And I actually did a video for this on this for Core 8 Gaming. I'll go ahead and link it in the video description. I think it covers the basics pretty well. And essentially, the approach that I advocate is treating this as a hobby that involves acquiring skills, right? So you figure out how much time you have, you set goals for yourself based on what you think you can reasonably accomplish with that time, and then you schedule out your time and format it in a way that you can kind of get the most out of whatever time you have. Because if you're in grad school, you should be focused on fucking grad school. I have known way too many fighting game players who flunked out of their schooling programs because they couldn't walk that line. They couldn't strike that balance. Please finish fucking grad school. But that doesn't mean you have to stop playing fighting games necessarily. It just means you might have to be very selective and very specific about how you engage with them. But most of the stuff is in that video, so I won't really rehash it too much in this one. So let's zoom out for a little bit. I've been actively playing fighting games for basically about 25 years. And when you do anything for that long, one, there's gonna be breaks. I've taken breaks before because I had to focus on school or work or a combination of school and work or a relationship or whatever. And that's fine. I think of fighting games as a marathon and not a sprint. I'm here for the long haul. And the way you make gains over the long haul is by being consistent. And consistency usually comes with, short, consistent practice sessions or play sessions, and not a lot of grinding that leads to burnout. So I very much try and embrace this in my life when I am trying to get into anything. Like I've been messing around with bass guitar, and it's nothing structured. I looked through a couple books, I plunked around a little bit on it. I try and get like 15 to 20 minutes in maybe every other day. And that's a pretty low priority project, but I get to see satisfying gains based on just that time that I'm putting in, and that's enough to get me to keep doing it. And it's the same thing with fighting games. If you can find 15 minutes every other day, that's enough to build your literacy and your comfort and your muscle memory and all kinds of other stuff. It just doesn't give you those sessions of like, oh, I'm gonna play ranked for 3 hours and then I'm gonna hate my life because I lost 50 points or whatever. So you have to be a little bit more intentional with how you structure your practice. But yeah, over 25 years, I've definitely taken breaks and it's fine. I just know that when I come back to it, I will come back and I will be ready to put more time in when my life is in the right place. It helps for me that when I'm not playing fighting games, I'm still kind of playing fighting games. In college, I didn't really play that many fighting games, but I was doing a lot of martial arts, which is basically a fighting game. And my other major break from fighting games came when I didn't really like Street Fighter 4, so I didn't play it that much. But StarCraft 2 was blowing up, so I was playing a lot of StarCraft 2. And StarCraft 2 is also kind of a fighting game. So personally, when you ask me, how do I manage to do it all and live a balanced life? I wouldn't say that it's balanced because everything to me comes back ultimately to fighting games in some form. If it's not a specific fighting game, it's still something else that's going to work that part of my brain. It's going to cultivate my discipline. It's going to teach me physical skills as well as mental skills. Because that's that shit that I'm into. That's just why I'm here. I live myself for fighting and for fighting games. And when you think of it that way, then you can see fighting games anywhere, and then you'll find them, and you'll end up playing them one way or another, even if you're not literally playing them.
Would you say life is like a fighting game?
I would say fighting games are life. But one of the things about playing games for that long is it's not hard for me to spend just a little bit amount of time to kind of maintain or make slight progress in a game. Again, knowing that I'm going to do this a lot, so I'll see gradual gains over time. I can also put down a game and come back to it after not having touched it for a year, and I'm not at 100%, but it's not bad, right? I'll get back in there pretty quickly. So even when I'm playing different games, I'm often rotating them in and out or focusing on some more than others. It's not like I'm spending hours and hours and hours on each game every day all the time. Some of that just comes with having done this for such a long time that I know myself and I know what it's like, so I don't feel scared about putting the game down. I think a lot of people who experience fighting games for the first time, getting into them for the first time, really feel like they have to ride that rush of enthusiasm they feel at the beginning as long and as hard as they can. And that's not the process that I would take necessarily. Certainly, when you're a little bit older and more experienced like me, it's easier to look at this and go, yes, I see this wave of enthusiasm. I'll ride it for a little bit, but I'll make sure I'll get off while it's still sustainable and turn it into part of the rest of my routine. And doing that for the long haul makes it easier for me to kind of stick with these games and continue to spend time on them because I don't have to risk burning out at all. So overall, I'd say that this approach is generally a little bit of a healthier way to play fighting games, but it is one of those things that I would say is easier to do after you've been through the process of learning to play a couple of fighting games already. So just stick with it, and eventually you'll get like me. You'll be nice and washed in a whole bunch of different games. You'll be having the time of your life. It's a similar thing with everything else that I do in fighting games as well. The writing, the videos, the TOing, that kind of thing. For one, most of the stuff I don't do all on my own. Play Guilty Gear runs a lot of tournaments. We have Rev Tuesdays, we have Only Mids, we have Cali Burst, we have Resshoumania, as well as other events that will run, side brackets and that kind of thing for other tournaments. But it's not just me. It's never just me. I have a team, and beyond just the core team, shout outs to Play Guilty Gear Squad, Starsky, Irene, Landline, Valman, wherever you are, we miss you, bro. Outside of just them, we also have a bunch of volunteers in the community that are just down to help with whatever. And so being able to distribute that responsibility and the work makes it a lot easier to be consistent. And it also means that if I can't do something, then someone else can probably step in and do it and cover for me then, and then I'll cover for the next time, right? So being able to bring groups of people into all this makes it a lot easier because it's less work for everyone than if we just had a couple, or worse, one single point of failure who is responsible for everything. There's also something specifically exhausting and expensive about doing something new, whether in fighting games or in the other stuff that I do. For example, this video series that we're doing is new to me in some sense, right? Like we weren't doing these Ask Pat videos before 2025, really. But I've done on-camera work before. I've been doing the advice column thing for a while on my Medium blog and on Patreon. So the only things that are really new about this is doing this in our lovely studio setup. Because I have that prior experience, it's easier for me to embark on a project like this because it's not 100% new. It's really only like 10 or 15% new. And it's the same thing with fighting games. If I decided to get into Tekken or Virtua Fighter as someone who didn't really play that many 3D fighting games, that would be a bigger reset. It would take a lot more effort for me to get to a point where I felt like my efforts were leading to kind of perceivable progress. But because a lot of the games that I play are games I've been playing for a long time, or recycle concepts or overlap in skill sets with games I have played for a long time, it's not as much effort to get into something, very quickly kind of ascertain what it's about, and then decide if I want to keep playing it or not. And that's stuff that just comes with experience. The longer you do this, the more you do it, the easier it is to apply lessons and skills that I've already cultivated elsewhere. But if something's extremely novel and I'm doing it for the first time, that's when I need to give it a lot of attention. And so I will only take on those projects if I have a lot of free time. And frankly, I haven't had much free time because I'm doing all this stuff. So like Resshoumania, for example, it's our big end of year event, and we've been doing it for about, I think 4 4 years? 4 years. But it didn't start out as a 3-day event. It started out as a 1-day event. And that 1-day event was an extension of some of the Cali bursts that we had done during quarantine, where we had video production for it. So all we did with Resshoumania was have a show match Cali burst in an actual place instead of doing it online. And then when we moved to the 3-day Resshoumania, all we did was graft a couple other things that we had kind of already done to the Resshoumania format. So I try to take on projects that don't have too much new stuff and are mostly just ever so slightly growing our capacity or my skill set, my comfort zone, to make it a little bit easier to do overall. For me, the only way that I can manage to do all this stuff is if I keep most of it easy and also bring in a team to help. So that's the kind of the bigger picture answer for how we manage to do all this stuff. One, it's not just it is truly a we thing. And two, leveraging the benefits of compounding experience over time makes all of this a lot easier. So these days I'm running events, I'm competing in multiple different games. I work in fighting games, right? That's I was gonna say 9 to 5, but it's usually longer than that. I write, we make these videos, we stream, all kinds of stuff. And I learned how to do each thing in small chunks, one at a time, and only now is it really kind of all coming together. So with fighting games and with the stuff outside fighting games, it's really just about breaking things down into small chunks, taking down small projects, finishing them, doing this one step at a time, and kind of growing your capacity overall, again, over the long haul. But to zoom out even further, like, fighting games are my life. This is what I've chosen to do with my life. I could have done a lot of other things. Originally, I was probably gonna go be a lawyer. I chose to play video games instead of pursue law school. I'm not that sorry. No, not for a minute. Are you fucking kidding me? That was a conscious decision that I made when I realized that I'm just the kind of person who's really happy when he's doing the things that he cares about. And when I say this is my life, I mean, like, I live 30 minutes away from my dad and I see him like maybe 6 or 7 times a year because my time is spent on this. I wouldn't expect other people to make that decision necessarily, which is why I chuckle when you know, if my life looks balanced. Hey, that's great. I don't think other people will necessarily make decisions like that. They could, if they, you know, if the situation allowed it and they wanted it enough, I think they could. But I truly see that from my perspective, this is why I'm on Earth, is to help bring people a little joy and a little improvement and sometimes a little tough love through fighting games. I think it's the thing that I care the most about and that I'm the best at fucking doing. So that's what I'm here for. And you may have something like that in your life, or you might not. You might not yet, you might not ever, right? People live their lives in all kinds of different ways. But if you do have something like that, you know, go all in, and eventually your life will probably look a lot like mine. And if you don't, that's cool too. You don't have to live like me in order to have rewarding experiences with fighting games. That's the beauty of them, is that you don't need to make this your life in order to have truly life-changing experiences through them. It's a great question, and thanks for asking. I know this is a little bit more philosophical than where we usually get with a lot of these videos, but I hope that this helps, because it is so easy to look at other people's lives and go, well, if they're doing it like that, why can't I? And that's true. But there also might be reasons that your life doesn't look like theirs right now. And I hope this sheds a little bit of light on that. So thank you.